My name is Kristen Krey, and I work for the city of Glendale, located in Arizona, and I've worked for them for 24 years. Yeah, I'd like to kind of pose a question. Have you ever found that there is a thread throughout your career that has always been there, but you didn't realize it? And then end up where that thread led you having your aha moment? That has been the theme of my career trajectory. I can't say I had a specific goal in mind on the path to the grants profession, but I ended up here and I find it very satisfying, even though I landed here in a very non-traditional manner. I started my career 30 years ago at the City of New York working for the Department of Corrections as a special investigator. This was a sworn law enforcement position. I had completed my Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice and in Political Science, so it was a good fit for me. During the time with the City of New York, I worked on multiple high-profile projects. One of them actually resulted in a research grant for correctional drug treatment therapies. So after spending 4 years at home, because I'm from New York City, I decided to move to Arizona for a job with Coconino County Juvenile Corrections, where I managed their antiquated jail. There, I worked on a local bond election to build a new jail, and I worked on getting 3 grants for correctional health, correctional education, and also youth community transitioning from jail back to the community. Throughout all this time, I was managing staff, managing facilities, determining policies, and all those other responsibilities that came with being the boss of systems that were responsible for people's lives. So after a couple years with Coconino, I moved on to the Glendale Police Department, where I was a police service manager, managing multiple departments, including the jail, crime scene investigations, identification, property evidence, fleet services, and even our personnel department. And I had about a staff of 50 at the time. During my 8 years with the police department, I worked on a number of grants as well, VOCA, COPS and more, a number of community partnerships, a number of training grants. I kind of decided that the PD didn't offer me enough promotional opportunities as I was not a sworn officer here in Arizona. And I decided to move over to City Hall, which is City of Glendale's kind of administration or operational hub. I put my political science degree to use there, and I had also recently acquired a Master's of Arts in Organizational Management, and I went to work as the City Council Administrator for the City of Glendale. I managed the City Council staff and generally the affairs of the City Council, and I worked with all the departments in the city, which was pretty interesting because we served about 230 citizens at the time, and we have about 25 different departments. Interestingly, I was also very involved in our community partnerships grant process with our local nonprofits through our neighborhood revitalization process and our community development block grant process. So after about 8 years in the political realm, working at that highest level in city management, um, I kind of needed a change. Politics is harder than policing. The city had not had a grants administrator in place for about 3 years, and there was a need to rebuild the process and gain an understanding of our overall amount of grants and what we were managing citywide, because we were well over 30 million at the time. The opportunity was offered to me, and that aha moment kind of occurred. The thread had led me here. Uh, I had been in the city at that time almost 16, 17 years. And now I've been in this job almost 7 years, excuse me. Um, Luckily, in the beginning, I found the Arizona founding chapter for the Grant Professional Association. And I also was able to network with a lot of my local peers here in Arizona in the Phoenix metro area. And they were honestly my best resource for kind of getting into the overall grants profession and understanding what it meant and what it entailed. The work itself wasn't complicated for me because I knew all the city systems and the city departments. So I was able to get a grants management system and train all my liaisons in the departments to work on that system. I've since updated all our policies and procedures, leading us into that kind of 21st century grant thinking. I work in the finance and budget department, so I get to also work on large citywide projects, which also enhances my ability to understand what the city needs for grants purposes. Um, I feel like the position has given me the ability to expand my career. And I do a lot of training also because that's always been a passion of mine as well for not only our local GPA chapter, but also GPA headquarters for like our chapter leaders and at our professional development events and conferences. So although my grants management career was certainly not the focus, um, interestingly, it has always been a part of my career since day one, 1990. And I'm happy that the thread has led me here to be able to work with and learn from so many grant professionals at GPA. Well, my current position offers me the opportunity to work with so many different groups. So not only am I dealing with our internal services for city purposes, I also get to deal with external, which is our nonprofit organizations. We have a program called From the Heart, wherein utility bill donations go towards funding specific nonprofits in our area. And annually, I work that process with a consultant that I hired to do our technical review. And that's probably the most gratifying part of my job. Although we're not giving away a lot of money, it runs in about the 100 to $120,000 total pot of money. But I do get to work with usually at least 40 different nonprofits and hopefully funding them for bettering our community and offering services to our citizens that may not have been offered. I think the most surprising thing for people is how I got here. Like when you're talking about people at the city, most of them know me because I'm one of the longer term employees now. I'm one of the most senior. And they find it really interesting how I kind of landed in finance and budget after a career in law enforcement and kind of the political realm. Because it just seems so off target. I mean, finance and budget is all about money and it doesn't seem to be dealing with people as much or community engagement as much. But the grants position is a highly engaging position, so it fits me really well. Yes, the position itself requires a master's degree. A master's degree is preferred now. When I originally hired into the position, it was required. So it does require that, and it needs to be in an aspect of some kind of business management um, piece. As far as training goes, the city doesn't have a professional development requirement, but my boss, who's the director of finance, and I establish goals at the beginning of each year, and I require myself to do professional development, which fortunately we gain through the Grant Professional Association. For example, I just attended I Learn Live last month. That is my professional development for 2021. Well, if I kind of go back to my introduction, I would tell people that sometimes there are forces working that you don't even know about that creates that thread. So I believe that we need to be adaptable and flexible, especially during these incredibly changing times. 2020 was the most unusual year any of us have ever had. So I would say that the best thing to do is have an open mind. Um, and when opportunities are presented to you, keep that open mind because you may think at first, oh, I don't want to do this. But when you kind of think it through, you can find often that there's a thread in your career that led you there. When I was offered the position as grants administrator here at the city, I'm kind of like, huh? And then I kind of realized that, wow, this really is a great culmination of everything I've done here. Now, in the beginning, I think the best thing that anyone can do in their career is learn as much as possible. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one position. Be the person who volunteers to help other colleagues, associates, do different things. The more you learn, the more flexible and adaptable you become, and the more you become relevant as well. So I would say always keep an open mind. You can look for the thread. Sometimes you won't even see it until you need to see it. Yes, I have had quite a few. I've never went into a position without identifying someone that could help me learn how to be great at that position. Um, One of the things that is super critical is to understand that, your boss is your boss and they can be your mentor. But sometimes it's better to have someone who's not your boss be your mentor because they see a different perspective than your actual boss does. I was really fortunate when I was in the city council office in the government role here. I worked for an assistant city manager directly and a city manager directly who were both incredible mentors to me. Throughout my law enforcement career, it was very interesting because there weren't a lot of women in that field. Um, it's significantly increased over the years. So I always identified women who were strong figures and had a strong presence in the organization to kind of learn from as well. And for the most part, I wouldn't be where I am today without that mentorship that I've had from a variety of people. And then the other piece is giving that back. Throughout my career, I've mentored many people as well. A lot of times, mentorship is built on trust. You have to really be able to trust the person that you are mentoring and vice versa if you're being mentored. So you have to build those relationships and build them on trust. That's super critical. So I would say that being a mentor is as important to me as having a mentor. And fortunately, I have been able to provide that role to a number of my colleagues or my fellow employees over the years. And that's a really good feeling to know that you can do that. And the other thing is it's kind of ironic. The people that were my mentors, um, even after they've retired from, let's say, City of Glendale, two of them are still my greatest friends. So sometimes you get a bonus. You not only get a mentor, you get a lifelong friendship. Um, I guess I'll go back to what I said earlier. My best piece of advice is, you know, things are changing and they're always changing. And if we're not willing to adapt to change, we're not going to go anywhere. So look at what's happening, whether it be in your organization, whether it be in your life, whether it be in the social impacts that we're seeing in the world. And understand that sometimes the best laid plans often go awry. So the best thing to do is to look at life from the perspective that these changes and challenges that occur with them are something that you can handle and you can be adaptable to. And with that adaptability and flexibility, your career will go where you want it to go. And also, sometimes you have to do something that you may not want to do for a while in order to get to do what you want to do. So, if anybody thinks that that doesn't happen, they're wrong. And a lot of times it's just putting in that effort and putting in the time to get to where you want to be.